Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready?
All right, welcome back to another thrilling episode of Life Unfiltered. Today we have a very special guest. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right, I'm Cameron Moist, and I'm a producer for NASCAR.
Awesome. How are you?
I'm great. How about yourself?
Doing good. Um, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into becoming a producer?
Yeah, absolutely. So my story starts all the way back in high school, actually. So I grew up in Florida, and while I was in high school, I played baseball, and I knew that baseball wasn't going to be in my future. I didn't have the size. I didn't, I could play. I could play pretty well, but I just didn't have the size to make it to the next level. And so I knew that I wanted to work in sports, and I knew that getting an early start would help me for the better. And so I started helping out with local radio broadcasts and doing things of that nature. And the show was called the Friday Night Locker Room, and it was based out of Brevard County, Florida. And once I started doing that, I just realized that was something that I wanted to do, and then I was interested in it. And so once I graduated high school, I had a academic scholarship to a junior college, and I went and did my 2 years there, got my degree, and knew that I still wanted to pursue working in sports. So once I did that, I looked at other colleges to transfer to, 4-year schools, and the one I decided ultimately upon was Oklahoma State, as you can see here behind me. So I transferred into Oklahoma State University and went there for 3 years. Wanted to make sure I took my time to make sure I really kind of honed in on everything that I wanted to do. And um, 3 years there, I graduated in the fall of 2017 and ended up going to Salem, Virginia, right out of college after I graduated with my degree in sports media. So I went to Salem, Virginia, worked for the Salem Red Sox for about 4 years as a director of video production. And once I hit my ceiling there, and I needed to see what the next step for me was, and I had an opportunity with the Charlotte Knights down here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was there for 2 years, and just up until last March, so almost a year now. Um, I ended up getting an opportunity to work in NASCAR and kind of jumped at it and didn't look back.
Well, that's awesome. See, you were right in my neck of the woods. We're right outside of Salem. I'm in Roanoke.
Oh yeah. I lived in Roanoke for 5 years. Worked closely with Alan Lawrence and the Salem Red Sox, and I still talk to Alan to this day. He and I keep in touch every once in a while.
See, that's awesome. You never know, who you're going to talk to and the kind of things that they've done and where they've done them. So that's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah, you never know where anyone's going to end up, and you never know who's going to, be make an impact on your life. When you're starting out your career. And Alan made a big impact on mine. So he's a great guy to work under and a great mentor, and helped me out along the way. And never once was like sad about when I decided to leave. He was very excited because he knew that I'd hit my ceiling with the Red Sox, and was always pushing for me to find something that was a little bit better. And he knew that it was a great start for me, and he knew that it wasn't the end. I was gonna keep rolling up.
Yeah, and it sounds like that, through it all thus far, that everything that you've gone through, you've enjoyed the journey. And that's really what it's about. It's not really so much the destination as it is what it takes and what it's like to get there.
Exactly. Yeah, it really is about the journey, and taking the steps you need to take to get to where you want to be. And that's why I like working with the Salem Red Sox helped me out a lot, because in my department I was a man of one. There was just me in my department. Uh, so I ran the entire video department. I had help from others, but as far as the titling in the department goes, it was really just me, and I was tasked with having to hire my own staff and having to find better ways to utilize the video board, like playing movies on the screen and stuff like that, and stuff coming out of college, just to have to jump into that after, being a college kid and just, taking in everything. Now I'm having to do the managerial stuff and, essentially being somebody's boss. And that was something I had to learn really quick, and now it helped me a lot with that.
Yeah, I would imagine so. So now being a TV producer or a producer in general with NASCAR, how's life in the fast lane for you now? And what was that journey like to start to work for them and get behind the scenes and learn their processes?
Yeah, it was a quick turnaround for me. I had to learn really quick because they essentially threw me into the fire and was like, "Hey, don't burn." And so I had to learn real quick. It's a lot different than baseball. When I worked in baseball, you got 9 innings to get everything you need to get in as far as your sponsorship, your all your fun games and stuff. Working minor league baseball, that's what it's about, is the fun on top of the baseball itself. So with NASCAR, you have pre-race and you have post-race to get everything you need to get in, mostly in pre-race. And so it's scheduled down to the second, and I cannot be late. If I'm off by like 10, 15 seconds, then race control is off. This race isn't going to start on time, and I'm having to do whatever I can to make sure that I am on time and on schedule. And that was the big thing I had to learn was, there you cannot be late as far as your timing goes.
Gotcha. So as far as working for NASCAR, I would imagine that it's an incredible responsibility, but an incredible experience. How has that changed your outlook on being a producer and seeing how different sports are behind the scenes when it comes to whether it's baseball, football, NASCAR?
Well, I know that most sports do work at a fast pace, but they're not all at the same pace. Like, baseball's a little bit slower. Football's fast depending on how the teams are playing, like if they're running hurry up offense or if they're running 2 minute drills, stuff like that. So, as a on the broadcast side of things or as a producer side of things, you just got to have a feel for your sport. Like, everything moves fast. It's just some aren't as fast as others. Um, and I actually got my first taste of that and since you're in Roanoke, I did a 1 year stint with the Rail Yard Dogs, working in their broadcast and their kind of game entertainment side of things as well. They had a an issue to where they hired somebody in the video department, and after they hired them, that person like left or quit like a week before the season, and they just needed some help right away. And they reached out to Alan, and Alan asked me, and I said, yeah, I'd help them out, no problem. And that was my first taste of different sports have different speeds, because hockey is always on the go. And coming from baseball, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna need to step up my pacing here, make sure I'm not, gonna fall on my face.
Right. So as far as being in the NASCAR scene, what kind of interactions have you had with some of the teams and crews and drivers and things like that?
So most of the time, if it's race season, we're doing our broadcast and we're doing our stuff from Charlotte, all remotely for the most part. And to be in specifics, I work in the screens department. So, basically what that means is wherever we're racing at the track that weekend, it is my team's responsibility to put up the show that's on the video board, your live feeds, your interviews with drivers, your uh, videos that we all create, content in-house, and as well as like your post race interviews as well. Now we do partner a lot with like whoever's broadcasting that weekend, so whether it's Fox or NBC. Um, so we would work with them to get interviews because they're right there getting their own. So we're like, hey, we're just going to piggyback off of you, and we'll put that on the screen just for immediacy, so that way we're not we're not having to wait for our radio partner to get down there. It's just right there in front of us. Um, and working with the drivers, the most time I've gotten to spend with the drivers was just, I mean, not even a couple weeks ago, maybe, if that. But we had NASCAR media days and production days. So we had our own screens set up, and we brought the drivers in, asked them a few questions just so we could make some fun content for fans to see at the track this season.
See, that's awesome. You always wonder, watching it on TV is one thing, but seeing how things kind of function behind the scenes, you get a better idea of really how fast paced things are and how many people and the talent it takes to put on, a good production.
Yeah, it takes, and it really does take a village. There's a lot of people involved in that process. Just in our control room, we'll have, like, just say for myself, I'm producer, so I'm sitting there making sure everything's going off, without a hitch, everything's on target. We have an EVS operator who basically runs our replays and clips off highlights and stuff to make for the end of the day. And we have our technical director who basically just switches cameras and makes sure you're keeping up with the broadcast. And we have a graphics coordinator who's in the back of the room, making sure all of our low thirds are correct, all of our race information is correct on the track. So when you go to a track and you see the L bar come up and it's got the list of drivers and all that, that is coming from our graphics department and making sure that they're on top of it, everyone's in the right place, things are timing out correctly. And then last year we had somebody, which would end up being me as producer because I was right next to the soundboard, but we would have to make sure that our sound is off when it needs to be off, up when it needs to be up. And then we always have an engineer in the room in case something goes wrong, so that way we can have the quickest way to get back up and running as smooth as possible, as quickly as possible. But this year we're in a brand new control room. We're in a brand new building in the NASCAR production facility, which is based out of Concord now. So we just moved up the road about 20 minutes. And so we're actually going to be testing all that out in this upcoming weekend with the Rolex 24 at Daytona. And that'll be our new control room's maiden voyage. But it takes a lot of people even outside the control room. We have to have camera people at the track. We send our sideline reporter, talent to the track. We have multiple people that we're in contact with to make sure that we're on target and make sure we're on time. And like I said, it takes a village, and it takes a pretty big village to make sure that a NASCAR broadcast gets off without a hitch.
And see, that's an amazing thing that you guys do, because not everybody could do that, and you have to be on point and know what you're doing. And I think that's just one of those things where it's an amazing production. It's enviable in certain aspects when it comes down to what you were just saying as far as what it takes, as far as having a village, and just the overall size of the production to make sure everything's right, and that if you're off just a second, it messes everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to be. So we have somebody that's in the race control, and they are in contact with the safety crews out at the track. They're with the officials out at the track. And they're in contact with us too. And so I have to be on point with their timing as they're timing down. And if I'm off, then I got to cut out early, or if I'm a little short, then that's fine. You can give them a few seconds to breathe before jumping into things. Now they'd rather it be to the absolute second, so it's a smooth transition. But I'd rather be early than be late and have to cut a video off in the middle of playing it. I haven't had to do that yet, so fingers crossed on that one. But I have been, like, I think about maybe 15 to 20 seconds early, just because my timing was a little bit off because we were in a different time zone. And so I was 30 seconds ahead, but luckily the video was a little bit heavy on the padding at the end, so I ended up being like only 15, 20 seconds early, which again, much rather be early than be late.
Yes, couldn't agree more. Yeah, I mean, you'd rather have that little bit of radio silence, so to speak, than to be watching something and all of a sudden go, oh, what happened? Where'd it go?
Exactly. Well, luckily we have a great guy that's usually at every track, every race. His name is Josh Thompson, and he is our on-site TA and audio guy. So he's the one that's controlling when the PA volume's up, when the music volume's up, all that. So he's basically our A1, but at the track. And so luckily he's a intuitive guy, so he realized that we were a little bit light on our videos, and that 15 to 20 seconds he was playing pump up music to get the fans ready as we get ready for the command for drivers to start their engines.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what is the thrill for you to be able to produce such a show and to be a part of something that's been around for so long and that it's had so many legendary drivers and people work for the organization?
So the thrill for me actually comes from when I was a kid, because I'm a race fan. My family grew up racing go-karts in the World Karting Association for a while, and so I've gotten to meet drivers who, when I was a kid, ended up being in the Cup Series. And although he's not in the Cup Series anymore, one of those people was Trevor Bayne. He used to race with my brother, and they were in the same class. He raced nationals against each other, and it was just I was thrilled to see him win the Daytona 500 at such a young age that he was. I'm not sure if he still is, but at the time he was the youngest to ever win the Daytona 500, and he was
Wow.
racing for the Wood brothers at that moment. And so like it's the thrill for me is being a race fan. I get to create a show for the race that's coming up, and I get to sit there and get paid to watch the race. Whether they're like most people say, whether they're driving in circles or if they're racing on a road course. Every time you ask a fan, why don't you like NASCAR? They're like, all they do is drive in circles. Well, you know, get them to climb into a car once and go 200 miles an hour, see if they can keep the wheels underneath them, and then they'll probably come back with a different story. But I've always loved racing, and the passion came from my dad and my brother, and I just kind of never got into like racing heavily myself. Like I just take the cart out and go and race a few laps after the race just to get the wheels underneath me. But um, you know, I always liked it. I always wanted to be around it. I love the smell of gasoline. I love the smell of burnt rubber, and I love smelling the asphalt. After it rains, and hearing the jet dryers when they're out on the track. Like it is a very cool atmosphere to be in it. And so for me to be able to sit in a control room and bring that look and that atmosphere and everything to the fans at the track so they're seeing what they're hearing, it's unmatched for me.
And see, that's amazing. You can hear the passion that you have for the sport in general, whether you were working for NASCAR or not. You could just hear that you're just a massive fan because of the way that you describe little things like the burning rubber, which is unmatched. I mean, if they could put that in a candle and sell it, you know.
I'd buy them all.
Yeah, I
So
mean, and
I'd burn
you
them
know,
all around my apartment.
and you're not wrong. I mean, I'm in the automotive industry myself, of course, totally different side of things, but just the smell of rubber in general, like with tires, it does give
Mm-hmm.
that euphoric feeling of nostalgia.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then just getting to work with the people that I've been able to work with, it's just incredible because sometimes we will produce a Fox broadcast in house for some of the lower levels, like your ARCA series or Truck series. And who's on that broadcast booth? But Trevor Bayne. And so I walked by him and I was like, oh man, like I don't know if you remember me, but when we were kids, my brother used to race against you, and he remembered. And like it's that's the great thing about NASCAR is like you will have the most real athletes because they are athletes. In the general sense of the term, they are athletes, and they don't. A lot of them they don't big time people. They're just real people. Just like your everyday. You could walk by them in the grocery store. They'll sit there and have a conversation with you, and they're great people to be around. And I brought a couple of friends of mine to tour the NASCAR facility last year when we were in Charlotte, and I brought them in and I took them to one of our studios, and Fox was just happening to get ready for a broadcast, and here comes Michael Waltrip, and both of their jaws just dropped to the floor, and they're like, "He's so tall." I'm like, "Well, yeah, like he was one of the tallest drivers that there was when he was racing." And it's amazing because you see people that the fans get to see their heroes and they get to see them in a way that they're totally not used to. Like they're used to just seeing them in the car, strapped up, helmet on, ready to go. They're not used to seeing them out and about and just hanging around the NASCAR studio.
Yeah, and I couldn't imagine what that's like just to see somebody, who on race day is just in that zone of go, 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 go to
Mhm.
running into them on the street or, like I said, in a store, restaurant, or, whatever the case may be. And they're not exactly what they seem, but better.
Yeah, and when we were doing media days, one of the questions we asked the drivers, was, what's one of your what are fans' biggest misconception about racing and the drivers? And most of them said that we're just like you. We're people. We get up every morning, we put our pants on one leg at a time, and we go about our business just like you guys do with your jobs. It's just their job happens to be racing a race car.
Yeah,
They're just
exactly.
normal
And
people.
I couldn't agree more, and I envy what you guys do just because it's a thrill to hear that you're able to do such things and be around such great people and just find out that you're right. Those people are just like you and I. It just happens to be their race car drivers who you see on TV.
Yeah. Yeah, one of them that I thought was funny in one of their answers was one of them was saying that everyone thinks that they're car guys. Not all drivers are car guys. Just because they're good at driving a car doesn't mean that they're gearheads. And I thought that was interesting because I never once even fathomed that would be the case. Like I would always think that every race car driver needs to know about the car and needs to be a gearhead because that's just how I grew up with the way my dad was about it. But yeah, there's some drivers in the circuit that just absolutely are not gearhead. They don't own like your classic hot rods like a lot of car guys do, and they just know how to drive a car real well.
And see, that's amazing. So, Cameron, tell me, what do you see in your future? As far as when you're done with the NASCAR producing, do you see yourself sticking with NASCAR or going to another venture somewhere on down the road that might be, give you the same kind of passion and thrill that you have now with NASCAR?
Well, right now I'm extremely happy with NASCAR. I mean, right now I couldn't have found a better place to be. It is a great environment, great company to work for. I work with some of the best people in the industry, and it truly is a family. Especially in our little screens group, we do treat each other like we're family, which is something that I had been like yearning for since I left Salem. And wasn't always the best between that. But once I got to NASCAR, it was the most similar feeling I got to a family like I was when I was in Salem. And I just enjoyed NASCAR and being around it. But in a lot of work industries, it's you take the opportunities and you make the decision based off when it's given to you. So, if I get an opportunity for something that may be a little bit better suited for me, down the line, like say if I, get married, have a family, all that, if it's better suited for me in that aspect, those are just things I have to take into consideration. But as of right now, I don't see myself really moving past NASCAR. I would like to stay here for quite a while, as long as they'll have me at Rutgers right now. But because I love this sport, I love this industry, and it's moving in a positive trajectory.
Well, listen, this has been an exciting, insightful conversation with you, Cameron. I really appreciate you sharing your journey into the current position and role that you're in. And to our listeners, I hope you stay tuned for more of Unfiltered series. There's more people out there like yourself that are just humbled about what they do and passionate about what they do.
Yep. I just got one more thing to say. If you guys want to see what it's like behind the scenes in NASCAR on Netflix on January 30th, NASCAR Full Speed comes out on Netflix.
Definitely got to check that out. I did not know that was coming. So put that on the calendars for sure.
100%.
Well, I appreciate it, Cameron. And, I'm excited to see what the future holds for you. And maybe we can do this again later on down the road.
Yeah, man, no problem at all. I'm glad to be on, honored to be on, and hopefully we'll be catching up here and pretty soon.
Yes, sir.
Down, down.